Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So as you guys seen, I've made a bunch of art out of quite a number of metals. Now, bismuth, zinc. This one is mostly tin. You need to add a small amount of either bismuth or antimony to tin. Otherwise, it forms an interesting crystalline substance called tin pest if the temperature were to go too low. That's what I've heard. I put a tin bar in the freezer one time just to see if I could recreate that. I didn't have any luck, possibly because it's hard to get pure enough tin for that to work, but still, I would hate for any of my art to fall apart. And the bismuth does make it a little bit more stable anyhow when it's being melted. I also tried aluminum a couple of times. It's hard to get a good source of aluminum. Aluminum cans are very thin, and so a bunch of it oxidizes. It has a weird coating on it as well, which creates all sorts of toxic gases when you melt it down. One source of aluminum I'm thinking about is the Japanese 1 yen coin. If you can get that close to the exchange rate, that's not a bad rate to buy aluminum at. Good luck getting it at that rate outside of Japan, obviously. I compete at the Computer Olympiad, and sometimes we do travel to Japan. I'm thinking if I ever have a conference in Japan, I'm going to bring my gear to Japan to pour Buddhas or whatever out of them, right? So that I won't have to explain why I'm bringing all these coins across the border, right? I think it's a lot easier to explain bringing finished art out of Japan, right? But there are two different kinds of molds that I pour things into. There's graphite and there's silicone. Silicone has a very limited temperature that it will tolerate. So tin, bismuth, and lead are probably the only common metals that you can possibly use silicone for. Graphite will tolerate much higher temperatures, especially zinc and certain high temperature pewter alloys, right? I think tin and antimony have a considerably higher melting point than tin and bismuth, depending on the formulation. But there is one ambitious metal that I want to try at one point. Radioactive metal, somewhat radioactive metal, neptunium. Just look at that. I would so much love to pour a bismuth out of that. And I have an idea where I might get a good amount of neptunium. See, a lot of people don't realize this, but smoke detectors, let's see, like the one up there, have a small button of americium in them. And the americium has a half-life of 400 some years, and eventually it decays into neptunium, which has a half-life that's 2 million some years, which is relatively safe to handle, I want to say. I would argue that if you had this around, you're probably more in danger of chemical poisoning from neptunium than from the radioactivity, right? The other nice thing about neptunium is that, unlike uranium and plutonium, it doesn't decay into radon, right? In fact, given long enough, it becomes that, right? And so I'm thinking of collecting millions and millions of expired smoke detectors, right? Expired ones would work better than brand new ones because the americium will have decayed, right? And extracting the neptunium, possibly with a carbothermal kind of reduction, right? The americium in your smoke detector is in some sort of oxide, and it will probably decay into neptunium oxides, right? And then you'll use carbothermal. What would be interesting is the melting point of neptunium oxide, depending on, it's a little bit on the high side, but you might not have to melt it to get the carbothermal reduction going, right? And I can't wait to have my first radioactive sculpture of some sort, right? Although I doubt neptunium will make intricate crystals like that because it is, first of all, you wouldn't want that much neptunium in one place. It is fissile, so there is a critical mass, of course. It's a good amount, so it's not something you'll accidentally create. But I'm asking for your help in collecting used smoke detectors. If anybody runs a business of some sort where they go through a lot of smoke detector. I can't imagine a good reason for that. Please drop me a line. Maybe we can make some art together. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.